Gather round, dear viewers, as I tell you a tale. Imagine for a moment that you're a young female production assistant in the late 1970s. You're not particularly talented or creative, but you are ambitious, and you've got the ability to spot opportunities when they present themselves. Almost by chance, you come to the attention of an up-and-coming movie director who hires you as his personal assistant. Both of you agree that you're not particularly good at the job, but fortunately, he takes a liking to you, and before you know it, you're working as a producer on his movies as he rises to become one of the most successful and sought-after directors in the world. With your keen ability to spot opportunities, you manage to stay close to him and his films, which are basically guaranteed to succeed no matter how good or bad you are at your job. This allows you to ride the coattails of people who are far more capable, competent, and creative than yourself. Along the way, you also get close to the director's friend, that guy who does the Star Wars movies. But that guy's getting older, and his latest batch of Star Wars films didn't go down very well, so he's thinking about retiring now. When he reluctantly decides to sell his company to Disney, your sense of opportunity tingles once more. The Star Wars guy still has a lot of emotional investment in the story and the characters that he created, and naturally, he's nervous that Disney won't treat them with the respect they deserve. What he really wants is someone trustworthy to run his company for him. Someone who knows him, understands his creative vision, and will fight to make sure it never gets compromised just to make a quick buck. That's where you come in. You make it known to him that you can be that person, and he decides to trust you. So the deal is done, and you're installed as the new president of his company, trusted to carry on his legacy. But before the ink is even dried, you promptly say, "Fuck it, I'm the boss." See, you've been waiting a long time for this moment. As a female executive in Hollywood, you've had to kiss a lot of arses to make it this far. You've had to put up with a lot of shit that you probably wouldn't have had to put up with if you were a guy. You've had to bide your time and bite your tongue, and as a result, you've got kind of a chip on your shoulder. A big chip indeed. But it was all worth it, because now you've made it. Now you're calling the shots. See, you've never particularly cared for Star Wars as a creative endeavour. In fact, you don't really understand why people like it so much. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that it's a huge brand with an equally huge reach. Rather than being a fascinating and culturally significant piece of art, you see it more as a giant megaphone with which to project your own personal ideology into the world. So you get to work right away, mandating that all new Star Wars movies will have a strong female character as lead. You happily shit-can the huge, richly detailed and lucrative extended universe, even though you promised you wouldn't do it because you don't really understand it and you want a clean slate to start again. To replace the extended universe, you hire a new story group staffed entirely by progressive activists, chosen because of their ability to tick diversity boxes rather than because of any actual skill or ability, who agree with your personal ideology 100% and won't produce a single thing that conflicts with it. On the movie front, you hire that Star Trek guy who desperately wants to be like the talented young director who got you started in Hollywood, and you use him to kick off your new trilogy of movies. He's not all that creative or imaginative, but he is compliant. And just like you, he's good at spotting opportunities and just competent enough to hide his shortcomings. He's happy enough to work your progressive politics into his new movie, but savvy enough not to go overboard with it. The gamble pays off, and the first movie makes a ton of money. A second female-led spin-off also does extremely well. Then the success kind of goes to your head, and you convince yourself that you can get away with absolutely anything. So it's time to take it up a notch. This time around, you hire a round-headed simpleton who hasn't really done much in his career, but sees himself as the next big cinematic auteur to write and direct the second Star Wars movie. Because even more than the Star Trek guy, the round-headed simpleton shares your political views 100%, and he's happy to do exactly what you want. Unfortunately, this time the gamble doesn't pay off. The next movie proves to be massively divisive, making $700 million less than the first, and turning huge parts of the Star Wars fan base against you. This wave of backlash and negativity spills over into the next movie, which ends up being the first Star Wars film in history to lose money. Now you're starting to panic because everything seems to be falling apart. Merchandise sales are cratering. The round-headed simpleton is lashing out at his critics on social media, while the people that used to work for the old Star Wars guy are increasingly hostile towards the new people that you've brought in, contributing to the toxic, divisive atmosphere at Lucasfilm. You're beginning to realise that the people who most loudly agree with your personal ideology are also some of the worst people to work with. Even worse, embarrassing revelations about behind-the-scenes conflicts and arguments, exposing your inability to properly manage directors and productions, are starting to become public. It turns out that running an entire movie studio is a bit different from sitting back and watching as productions helmed by talented and competent industry veterans basically guide themselves to completion. People are beginning to realise that you're not particularly well liked or good at your job, and there are questions around whether or not you should step down, especially from your boss, who was prepared to tolerate your ideology up to a point, as long as it didn't get in the way of him making truckloads of money for his shareholders. Unfortunately, it has. Now, a normal person in this situation would probably fear for their job security. Luckily, you've got a get out of jail free card. See, your boss is under a lot of scrutiny, and he's got aspirations to get into politics in the near future. Publicly firing the most senior female executive on his team, even a totally incompetent one, would invite a lot of negative publicity from a news media that's just itching to get outraged about stuff like this. So, you kind of assume that you're bulletproof when it comes to high-profile professional failures. Unfortunately for you, your boss knows how to play these games too. He can't publicly fire you, but he's also not willing to sit back and watch you destroy his company. So, he makes a public statement taking all the blame for the recent failures, shielding you from criticism, and effectively neutralising the news media. But behind the scenes, he's moving quickly to take control, shut you out, and prevent you fucking things up any further. He makes it clear that all future productions have to go through him now, and he begins quietly bringing in far more competent producers and writers with proven track records to take on future projects. Soon enough, these new projects start to bear fruit. The Mandalorian turns out to be a surprise hit, proving that with the right people working on it and no identity politics awkwardly shoved in, Star Wars can still be a viable property. Naturally, this is terrible news for you. Not only have you been locked out of the decision-making process and demoted to an essentially meaningless figurehead role, but other people are quickly proving themselves to be better and more competent at your job than you are. The inherently divisive nature of your personal politics is also being exposed as the box office poison that it is. The winds of change are blowing, and it's becoming increasingly clear that they won't benefit you. Your contract is almost up, and everyone knows there's no chance in hell of it being renewed. Now, any normal person with a shred of dignity, self-respect, and personal responsibility would recognise that the game was up and resign from their positions so they could leave on their own terms. But you are not a normal person. You might be occupying what amounts to a meaningless role now, but this still represents the very pinnacle of your career. You're 66 years old. This is as far as you're going to go. And like a punch-drunk boxer on his last legs, you're determined to get in one last hit before throwing in the towel. But what to do? Your boss has already made it clear that only he has the power to greenlight new projects, and it's obvious he won't go near anything with a whiff of identity politics, so you're kind of stuck. That's when inspiration strikes, and you decide to pull off a cheeky little maneuver of your own. You carefully leak information to the news media that you've got a new female-centric, diverse, politically progressive TV show in the works, headed up by a hardcore feminist showrunner with a questionable employment history. And because they've always been in your corner from day one, the news media run with the story without even bothering to question it. Now it's everywhere. Everyone's talking about this stunning and brave new project that you've got in the works. It doesn't matter that you don't actually have any scripts written, a concept to work with, or even a pitch to take to your boss. It's out there now. People know about it. and it's real in their minds. It can never be taken back. Now your boss is in quite the pickle. He can't publicly shut down your pet project without incurring the wrath of news and social media, further damaging his future aspirations. You've successfully forced his hand, setting up a no-win situation where he has no choice but to let your TV show go ahead. It doesn't matter that you're basically repeating the same mistakes that led to an escalating series of box office disasters. It doesn't matter that you're further alienating yourself from your own employees and fellow executives, dividing an already fractured studio. It doesn't even matter that your latest vanity project is almost certainly going to fail, demolishing the fragile goodwill that so many people have worked hard to rebuild. None of that matters to you anymore. All that matters is getting the message out so you can massage your wounded pride and ego one last time. That's the true legacy of your career. And honestly, I hope it's enough, because I sense that when this is all over, history will not be kind to you. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.